this morning I want to spend a little bit of time with some really interesting little creatures, and that's two of the common primate species, namely the Vervet Monkey and the Chacma Baboon. So what has opposable thumbs and loves bananas? Me! Good morning, everyone. So, jokes aside, this morning I want to spend a little bit of time with some really interesting little creatures, and that's two of the common primate species, not myself, that occurs out here on Shamwari Private Game Reserve, namely the Vervet Monkey and the Chacma Baboon. So I've moved to a different area of the game reserve. You can see we have a lot more rocky areas, a lot more valleys, a lot more hills, and not as many trees. And this is the areas where I expect to find baboons. They like utilizing these open areas where they obviously have a lot more access to food, baboons being a lot more omnivorous, feeding on roots, tubers, insects, mice, scorpions, even young antelope in some instances. Baboons don't really need trees as such, not like the vervet monkeys do. They'll be found in areas of savanna and open woodland. The roosting spots for baboons are slightly different to vervet monkeys. In this area, what we'd expect to find is rocky slopes or cliff faces that are very hard and inaccessible to most animal species. It's there that the baboons will be roosting at nighttime, and they're quite large areas because the troops of baboons can be up to about 200 members. What is really easy to spot are the monkeys sitting in the top of acacia trees and dotted around in this area. We've seen a couple that are running and scurrying between the bushes, but the easy ones to spot are the ones sitting at the top of the trees. They're the lookouts, the sentries, so to say. They're the guys who are looking out for danger and able to warn the rest of the troop should anything of threat come along, whether it be a land-based predator like a leopard or a lion, caracal even, or an aerial predator, something like a crowned eagle. So you can see the type of area that we're driving in looking for these vervet monkeys. They definitely like lightly wooded and treed areas. They don't survive in areas where there's very few trees. They need trees in order to survive. It's one of their primary refuges away from dangers, up into the trees. They thrive in that environment. So we're pretty much sitting in the middle of a troop now, which is just amazing. There's a whole bunch of youngsters coming out over here, a couple of females, and some very tiny little babies over there as well. These babies would have been born in November, December, in the height of summer. Obviously it's the most productive time of the year when food is at its highest and highest chance of survival for the youngsters. Also good warm weather for them as well. So gestation period is about 5.5 months for a vervet monkey. And when those youngsters are born, they are really tiny, only weighing a few hundred grams, and they cling to the mother's stomach for the first few weeks of life. And after about a month, they'll slowly start moving around, playing, jumping around, starting to interact with the other little monkeys. There, the little guy busy jumping over there, how cute is that? So you can see characteristic with vervet monkeys is that black face with that white eyebrow stripe. And it's that white eyebrow stripe that helps with visual communication over long distances. With the movement of the eyebrows, they're able to give away emotions exactly the same as humans. So foraging on the ground as well as on the side of the bushes, busy feeding off of any little roots and bulbs, any succulent little plants, some nice juicy edges of the leaves and shoots over there, young shoots, the odd occasional grasshopper for protein. Occasionally they'll eat like birds' eggs and that type of stuff, but much more of a vegetarian diet when compared to baboons. Have a look at this little guy in the road. So all vervet monkeys in a troop are responsible for the safety and upbringing of the youngsters within the troop. So a troop of vervet monkeys is pretty much, the core of it is made up of females, related females, and then there's a couple of dominant ranking different males through the troop. troop is then controlled by a dominant male until he's eventually pushed out by a younger, stronger male. But the core of the troop is made up of females. And when a female has a baby, there's pretty much unrestricted access of babysitting duties will go to her sister or nearest relatives, as they all are related anyway. And those females will practice their skills on babysitting. And I mean, a vervet monkey little baby is just so important within the troop. There's just so much time and energy spent looking and fussing over that little baby. You can see members busy grooming one another. And grooming is not only a way of them keeping clean and getting rid of dirt and that out of the fur. A lot of it is actually symbolic. The higher ranking an individual is within the troop, the more grooming gets done on him by lower ranking individuals. And in doing so, they almost earn brownie points. So unbelievable amounts of communication, vocal communication, and indeed a language spoken with these vervet monkeys. There's well over 50 documented calls that vervet monkeys are able to make and communicate with one another. Obviously, something characteristic about vervet monkeys is the blue scrotum. The dominant male has the brightest blue scrotum, which in non-ranking males doesn't occur. So really, I mean, vervet monkeys are so super interesting. There's just so many relationships and interrelationships that you can sit and watch with these guys. As this troop is moving, busy feeding, they're operating within a home range, which could in some areas be up to a few square kilometers in size. And they need that area to have all the resources and access to food and water. They don't drink really, but they need to have good access to lush vegetation, nutritious vegetation. You can see them feeding on flowers and green leaves up there on that sweet thorn acacia. They'll even be feeding off of the gum from the sweet thorn acacia, which is obviously high in sugars. They are very, very nimble, dexterous little creatures, able to jump and maneuver through these acacias with absolutely zero concern. And you can see sitting at the top of that tree out over there is a big male, and that guy will be one of the many sentries that are sitting up in a tree, busy keeping a lookout, making sure that there's no predators that could potentially harm these guys. They'll be sitting up there, making sure there's no aerial predators, things like crowned eagles, martial eagles. And there won't just be that guy up over there. As he comes down, there'll be one or two in other areas that come up, and literally, as they have a direction of movement, they'll be leapfrogging one another, always ensuring that there's a really good form of defense, keeping a lookout from predators. And as I said, their language capabilities are so advanced that certain calls elicit certain responses. A response for an aerial predator might be to get into a thick part of vegetation. They know if that call is made, get into vegetation, because the aerial predator, the eagle, won't be able to get them. If it's another call, they'll know, get to the top of a tree and look out so that they can find the leopard. Really an extensive language or vocabulary that these guys have developed, and obviously area specific. If you bring a vervet monkey from a different part of the country that's used to African rock pythons, for example, which will prey on vervet monkeys. We don't have African rock pythons here. They won't understand what that call is. They'll know it's a call for danger, but not specific for that animal. So definitely a lot of learned vocabulary. They are very opportunistic little guys. We have them around lodges. They're often found in association with humans, and that's actually what leads to, outside of game reserves, a lot of human-animal conflict, is vervet monkeys getting into homes, houses, buildings to try and get food and whatever other little bits they can find. Often you'll see them going through dung middens, whether it be elephant dung or rhino dung, and they'll be sifting through that, trying to get the larvae and the grubs of beetles, which again is a very, very high protein source for them. Vervet monkeys are quite prolific in this riverine bush around over here, and other animals will learn to adapt to them as well and utilize them as a relationship source as well. So when they make an alarm call, other animals like bushbuck will be listening out for that. When bushbuck make an alarm call, they'll be listening out for that. So definitely a mutualistic relationship. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little session this morning, watching these guys monkeying about. No pun intended, but really interesting animals to watch, and always doing something cool. If you haven't followed us yet, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and hit that notification bell. Stay tuned for our next episode, and I'll see you right here at Shamwari Private Game Reserve.